Starting a new project always sounds awesome until you open the empty folder, stare at the void, and you suddenly realize you have no idea where to start from. So you open a new tab, YouTube, for some old procrastination. Maybe if I watch one more aesthetic video of a day in my Silicon Valley job life, I will finally get motivated to start. Hi, I thought you might be interested to get to know some of the team on this project, so here's my executive producer. She's not used to being on camera, so excuse her expression. This is how she gets paid. Her contribution is very important. Anyway, let's get to the video. Hello friends! If you're new here, welcome. I'm Bella. I'm a full stack developer for a really cool startup. And today I thought I would share with you how I go about picking the first tasks when I'm assigned a new issue or a new feature. You want to avoid huge monolith tasks like build the UI or build the necessary endpoints, because that's only going to leave you frustrated and overwhelmed in the end. In my experience developing apps, I have found the workflow that works best for me when I want to start. I like to think that my workflow also evolves as I evolve as a developer, and so it changes dynamically and will continue to change probably. Here's the one I have currently identified to work best. This workflow assumes that you already have an idea of how your tech stack works, your framework, if you will. So if you are not there yet, make sure to watch my previous video on what to do to get there. So when I have to build a new feature or project, I usually start from the backend. I look at the specifications and I will ask myself, what information do I need to be storing and sending in neat little packages so that the front end can display what is in my mockups or the specifications if the concept is not there yet. Then I write those down, and these will probably make most of the columns for the new table or tables that I have to introduce. I will usually go back and study it a bit better and see if any of the information I wrote is redundant. Some columns may not be needed because the values in them that are stored can be calculated from other properties or something like that. So for this part of the implementation, some subtasks I would create instead of just build the tables or build the schema would be like write the migrations for the table or tables I need to create, or test that the migrations run and the table looks like I would want it to look in some database visualization tool like dbeaver, or I don't know, there's so many out there. Once the whole database infrastructure is done, I will move to the controller that will host my endpoints. I usually abide by the CRUD, create, remove, update, create, update, delete. But I will not always need all the endpoints depending on the use case. After building the skeleton of my endpoints, I will consider permission and authorization checks, again, depending on the use case and the scale of your project, and the DTOs I want to receive and return. I keep business logic completely separate, so far away from the controller. So what I will usually do is I will write the name of a function that will hopefully do what I want it to do, and then continue with just the structure that we talked about before, like DTOs and stuff. And then I will move to the service to implement this function that I just manifested out of nowhere. So subtasks in this part of the implementation, I would say for each endpoint would be build the skeleton. Is it a put, a post, a delete? What kind of endpoint is it? What should I call it? What should the URL look like? Think if I need to implement authentication or access control, which has its whole set of subtasks on its own. Write the DTO for the request if needed, then write the DTO for the response. Separate tasks. Write the service methods, and from there many subtasks per method, per thing you have to make sure that works. And finally, another category with a lot of subtasks is testing. via curl, postman, swagger, whatever you're using, to make sure that your endpoints work as you would expect. I'm in the blessed position to have a QA department. So this is more of a, okay, what I expect is returned, so that I can then go in the front end and use that return DTO. But for smaller projects, of course, at home, I don't have a QA department, and I will also have to do some edge case testing as well. That's why it's also very important to write good tests for your code. I did not mention that in the development process, but I always write quite extensive tests for my endpoints to see that they respond well to edge cases and everything else. Now, this is super important because I still do it, and it will be the death of me. Right now, after doing all the things we mentioned, we have a good skeleton for the backend. Hopefully it functions, the endpoints return what they should, and we should be ready to move on to the front end. One thing I do, for example, is I stay too long in the backend tasks. Even after everything is finished, I'm overthinking all the cases that could go wrong in the front end, or things that I might need in the front end that then I will not have. So I should probably make sure to add them now. So when I find myself refactoring, but not being sure if I'm adding any value to it, it's time to move on to the front end. You can always come back and improve it. No one's stopping you. It is a little bit of a hassle to switch between repositories and tech stacks and wait for your backend to build, especially if you're working on a big company project that takes a few minutes to build, but it's still going to take you less time than sitting there and trying to guess what things you might need in the front end, when you could just work in the front end and figure out what you need there. We can always go back and rework stuff. I need to hear this more than anyone. Now for the front end, I feel like motivation comes a bit easier because you can visualize what you do, the progress, just by saving and reloading. Or just by saving if you have hot module reload, but that's a whole other point. I call this the monkey see, monkey do part of development. It's almost worth the pain of trying to get signals to work with reactive forms. Angular, please give us signal forms soon. I'm losing my mind. As for the subtasks at this point, I would say they really depend on the use case and what you're building. So there's not a lot of generalizing here in terms of the process. Avoid making tasks like the login page, because again, that's too vague and it entails too much. Start somewhere, let's say top to bottom. I usually do. Make all the elements you want exist and then make them behave. And I usually leave the styling for last because I hate it. I'm not sure if I helped you see things in a different light or if I completely overloaded you with information. I want to make more videos on this process, putting more detail on each separate part in case you're feeling completely lost, to have maybe like a guideline. Maybe I will even make some templates with some basic steps for the things you can generalize. But I think the beautiful part about development is also that for every project, for every feature, for every developer, this process will look a little bit different. And that's why it doesn't get so repetitive as well. So let me know in the comments which parts you're more interested in knowing more about. The key takeaway I wanted to give you is that no matter how big or complex the end product you want to have is, you can always start from somewhere small, and then find your groove from there. Development is a bunch of small tasks coming in together to help you make something that you can show off to your friends and colleagues. There is no magic involved most of the times. I hope you liked this video. I really want to go deeper into my organization system, which is what sparked the idea for the side project I'm currently working on. So look out for that if you want some ideas on how to organize your coding tasks or general life tasks. Thank you so much for watching all the way until here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!